a doctor is only good if they're able to interact with patients, even though they might be the best doctors in the world. If people don't like them, if people don't trust them, they're not going to be able to get work done. But again, the balance is never perfect either way. And I think nobody's ever really going to, that's the point of balance. It's about the pursuit of balance and not achieving balance itself. I feel like we're doing what governments and international organizations will not be able to do because they're not at that grassroots level and they don't care enough about the granular level of the problem. And that's why I believe in entrepreneurs, because we are the catalyst that the world really needs for change.
Some people are so focused on trying to get that, 7-figure, 8-figure mark that they lose themselves. And I think with you, like you realize that, nah, I'm here for more. Like I want to make an impact. Hey everyone, welcome to the Sound of Crowd podcast. I go by the name of ADRIAN Daniels. This is the show where we speak with top gunning founders, entrepreneurs, and creatives worldwide, with the aim of leaving you behind with meaningful takeaways that you can apply in your life, business, and career. Just some housekeeping, guys, for today's episode. Please head over to thesoundofacrowd.com/Sydney. That's thesoundofacrowd.com/Sydney. That's SYDNEY for all of today's tips, nuggets, references, and resources from today's episode. Whilst you're here, please give us a like, leave us a comment below if you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast platforms. 5-star reviews also appreciated. And also, let us know what you think of today's episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and based on your feedback from the episode, maybe we might do some more stuff with Sydney. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to turn my attention to today's guest. We've got Sydney Sam.
Hello.
In the flesh. From CEO, founder of Workspace Global. They sponsored season 6 last season, and I thought it'd be great to have him in the flesh rather than just the live Q&A that we did, which was pretty good. Sydney, thanks for coming on the show.
This has been a long time coming, I would say, because I have been a fan of the podcast. I have been following. I reached out to you, told you were doing amazing work, and finally we're here today. So that's really
absolutely
cool.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to thank Emmanuel Gamore. For this,
for plugging.
Another, entrepreneur in the digital ecosystem space. Thanks for your community, Emmanuel. Really appreciate you. All right. So yeah, Sydney, I know you've just flown in from Web Summit.
Yes.
Before we get into the whole episode, just tell me a bit about what that was like for you in terms of Web Summit being really a melting pot of startups, innovators, investors, scale-ups, and tech companies. What was that like for you? In terms of being, an owner of, a business like that. Yeah.
I will say, I have been in business for 13 years, and I'm not very often impressed or blown away. And being in Lisbon at Web Summit, I was like, yeah, this is really the top in relation to where anyone would want to be. It really shows how much the world is investing in innovation. So for startups out there, you're gaining a lot of inspiration from TikTok and other places, like to see what other people are doing, but in the flesh to see, almost 5,000 to 10,000 startups in a place, everyone pitching, everyone doing business, investors signing on, like it's just insane. It's like a Beyonce concert, for us. And so I was just completely blown away. I was so inspired. And I felt very validated that, I was part of a global community that was actually really making change in the world. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think it's like the mecca of tech, isn't it? Almost 100,000 people. It's absolute insanity. Yeah. But yeah, the people you can meet around the world is
crazy.
Phenomenal. Yeah. I'm glad you really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So you guys, so Sydney founded Workspace Global. So they're an innovative online design service powered by AI that provides affordable access to quality brand support for startups worldwide. So they connect startups with African creative talent, they create job opportunities, and they bridge the gap between Africa's creative economy and the global startup ecosystem. So they're trusted by brands like World Bank, UN, and they've worked with over 500 startups. They've hired over 100 creatives in 9 years. And by 2030, get this, they aim to empower 100,000 startups and hire 25,000 creatives, leveraging the power of AI.
Yes.
I know we briefly touched upon this in a live Q&A, but I know you've got a lean and agile team.
Yes.
Right? Sure. I don't know if there's other companies that are trying to do something similar, but 2, like, how do you plan to pull this off with just a lean team and AI? Like, this is crazy, man.
Yeah. It is crazy because currently we're a team of just about 7 people, and supported by some interns and externs as well.
Yeah.
We do the hard work. And we're very patient. So even though we've launched fairly recently, we've been working in R&D for quite a while, for a few years, just picking up pieces of the processes that most people are not taking their time to do. So for example, I always say in the creative world, something called a brief. I know you know what a brief is. And it takes a certain kind of person to write a good brief, right? Now, to be able to ensure that everyone can write a good brief, we're trying to support them with technology and AI to be able to ensure that that happens, right? So to be able to do that, you need to take your time and build according to that. So we've just broken down the different processes. Most of the things that people would skip or people would find too difficult, or people put one chat GPT prompt in and think they can solve that, we take a few months to be able to do that. And the beautiful thing is that within about a year, once our technology is probably fully done, we're going to be able to accelerate much faster than anyone else in the game because we put in the time, so that's just generally how that's going to be. We also have a very human perspective to the tech system, or the tech ecosystem, understanding that partnerships are the way to go. So instead of trying to find one customer every time, we're looking for 100, 500, 1,000 customers at a time. And we've started signing on partnerships with very large organizations that I would not just mention just yet, who are just going to say, hey, we have 500 startups, could you support them? So that's also part of our strategy and how we know that we're going to be able to do those numbers, within a very short time. So yeah.
Fantastic. I think certainly, it takes a village, and partners, I think, is going to be part of your vehicle. Like, I think strategic I think you've got a background of strategic partnerships,
yes.
And I think that's definitely going to be the key to for you getting to where you need to get to. It's quite interesting that you're also trying to solve the job unemployment.
Huge problem.
Can you give us a bit more stats? Because I also spoke to Samuel from remotely, and he's trying to grow Africa's fastest growing outsourcing organization. And
he's doing
on a similar
amazing work.
mission.
Yeah.
He came on a show not too long ago.
Yeah. Amazing work. I mean, for me,
hey, global Ghanaian citizens, I hope you're enjoying this episode. Just a very quick announcement. I would just like to let you know. Hey, global Ghanaian citizens, I hope you're enjoying this episode. Just a very quick announcement. For today's special episode... Hey, global Ghanaian citizens, I hope you're enjoying this episode. It's just a very quick announcement. For today's episode offer, I'd like you to check the link in the description below. This is a special offer that we managed to secure in partnership with one of our guests or one of our partners. So please check the link in the description below for today's episode offer. You'll be able to take advantage of what we have in store for you today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I hope you enjoy the offer. Take care.
I mean, we all know about the fact that the African population, the young African population, is going to be the biggest population in the world in a few years, and the infrastructure in Africa is not enough to completely absorb that market. There's going to be quite a huge gap in terms of unemployment, at an immense scale. If you think about it quite critically, a few million people at every point in time are not going to have any work. Now, I mean, there are brands that are trying to, ensure that, they're able to absorb these markets, but we are looking at specifically two things: remote and flexible work. So primarily taking jobs out of the office where people can do this in their homes, but also flexibly. So breaking the 9-to-5 model and allowing, for the first time really for Africans to be able to say, hey, I only work on weekends, or I only work in the evening. So I only to be able to be flexible for anyone. So if you're a mother with kids, if you're a student, if you're an old person, as long as you are able to create value on our platform, by learning, graphic design or copywriting or web development, you can get stable income with us. So you can see that we're bridging the gap between remote, flexible work and stable income, because what's happening, unfortunately, is that the gig economy doesn't always favor everyone. It favors people who have a certain advantage in relation to certain kinds of relationships, etc., etc. But let's just say you're in a village somewhere. What are the odds that you're going to be the person who somebody's going to pick on Upwork or on Fiverr, if you get what I mean? And it takes time, and then also, and you have to pay for it. You have to actually pay for people to consider you for work, right? Whereas for us, we make it very hard to get in. We will train you to get in, but once you get in, you are guaranteed a certain amount of work. You just say, hey, I'm available to work 40 hours this month, and we will assign you to somebody who will ensure that we're sending you that amount of work. You're paid on a monthly basis for all the work that you've done, and that's
Yeah.
it. Very simple, you
Yeah.
know. So that's generally the way that we're approaching that
Wow.
problem. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I was going to touch on this a bit later on, Sydney, but I thought I'll bring it now. How do you say, or where would you say Workspace Global sits in the market? So if I was to draw like a Venn diagram, so
Yeah.
you have the freelancer marketplaces,
Yes,
so you got Design Crowd, you got
yes,
99 Designs,
yes,
Upwork,
exactly. Yes,
Freelancer Five,
yes,
etc.
yes,
And then on this side, you've got like Canva, you've got
yes,
Adobe
yes,
Creative
yes, yes,
Suite, you've
yes,
got
yeah.
Figma, all these
You've done all your research, friend.
I'm come from that background as
That's
well.
really good.
I kind of come from that background as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And then here you've got like, you know, just the odd freelancer who's trying to find their next project.
Well, yeah, there's a different way that I would structure it. So there we are playing in the done for you design and creative space. So there's the DIY space, people who want to do stuff themselves.
Yeah.
So that's Canva, Wix, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. People who, you know, have a creative bone or are primarily a little too budget tight to be able to do that. Those people are good, but they do get to a point where they go like they know they need help. So that we're not competing on that market. If you can do it yourself, you're not our customer. That's primarily it.
Yeah.
Then there is the freelance marketplaces, right, which kind of leave you to be able to find good freelancers as a startup founder or find your own customers. And then, you know, you're part of this just a large group of people just all clamoring for business from specific things, right? And so in that space, there's not a lot of there's protections, but not as much support because the platform doesn't take accountability for the quality of work you get,
Yeah.
or does not take accountability for how often you get business, if you get what I mean. So that's on the freelance marketplaces. Then there are the traditional agencies, right, who are a little too expensive for most of us, right? So there's still creative agencies where you send a proposal and all of that stuff. There's, you know, those people out there. Then there's us, which is the new world of design subscriptions. So there's brands like Design Joy, Superside, Design Pickle. But if you look at it critically, they're all focusing on mid-market to enterprise. You know, they're charging $5,000, high ticket a month, right? And if you're a startup in London that just began, or a startup in the US, or even in Africa that just began your business, you're not going to be able to afford that $5,000, you know, price point, right? So we are I wouldn't say the more affordable, more accessible version of that. Fundamentally, we're working to a place where we will be all round better because they still hire all their teams in-house. So they have really large overhead bill.
Yeah.
Whereas we want to bring in the freelance market as well. So we are unlimited, you know, and are still very agile, right? So that's generally the way that we're tackling that. So we will be cheaper, more affordable, more accessible, but also bringing and supporting not just 100 or 200 or 300 people, but 25,000 people like we're talking about. So that's where we sit on the design subscription end. And the interesting twist to it is that our interface is primarily through software. Which is what people are like, how does that even make sense? Because we want to book a meeting and, you know, but we're saying that we're a little closer to like a HubSpot or a Salesforce. So it's a software.
SaaS.
It's a SaaS, right? That helps you with briefing, that helps you with your workflow, that helps you with your project management. Like it tackles all those things for you. You still get a customer success person that you can talk to if you want to talk to a human being. But fundamentally, you don't need to, because I'll tell you, a lot of people make very good business decisions on the water closet, right? So you don't always want to be in a meeting, you know, to be able to say, hey, edit my website. So I just say you can use Workspace sitting in your bathroom and just saying, hey, I need to update my pitch deck, and somebody will get that done for you. So you can see how that is very convenient, you know, for a lot of people. So that's where we sit on that spectrum.
I think that's what you're saying earlier about the human element of it, isn't it? Being able to speak to an actual human representative, because I think with some of these platforms, you can't, you're forced to speak to bots.
Exactly.
And then you're trying to speak to a bot, and then it's like, how do I get to contact? It's like you're trying to force it to speak to a human, but they make it so difficult.
It needs to be by a human. So we are like, we're saying tech-enabled relationships. So the idea is you always have a human to speak to, and you will always have humans doing your work. But then the relationship in between is highly tech supercharged to ensure that it's much easier for, you know, for us to be able to create real relationships, create jobs, but also get things at a very fast pace. So it's a perfect world. A lot of people might think it's a little inefficient, you know, but we care about the people on both sides. So we're happy to take on that little bit of inefficiency, use technology to get as far as we can, but keep the human relationships at the core.
Fantastic. So would you say that's the value proposition of Workspace Global? So being able to have that human element,
Yes.
being cost effective,
Yes.
accessible,
Yes.
and also being able to relate to not just the individual who's trying to start, their own website or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
but also maybe Fortune 500 companies or
Yes,
global
literally.
companies.
Yeah, literally. Like it's gonna be it's similar to how Uber is the great unifier, right? You could be a billionaire, you'd probably still take an Uber
Yeah,
or like an Uber Black or whatever that
yeah,
is, and you could be somebody and you can still take an Uber, right? So our idea is that we're a tool.
yeah,
We're not positioning ourselves as a team. We're a
yeah.
tool,
Your tool,
right? So
yeah,
we sit in your as your Calendly or your Google Workspace,
yeah,
right? And you can leverage that tool in any way, and it's accessible to everyone,
yeah,
whilst really creating impact and being able to drive your business forward. So yeah,
yeah. So I want to talk. So our conversation today is kind of centered around building a
yes,
global
businesses,
brand,
yes,
right?
yeah,
And you did something quite interesting. So you built a creative agency,
yes,
and I remember you were saying on a podcast, or maybe I saw it on a post that
yeah,
you're probably on track to making multiple millions,
yeah,
and then you ripped up the rule book and you started again and you
yeah,
pivoted to a
yeah,
design platform.
yeah.
Why?
Well, number one, I don't think I was walking in my purpose, to be honest.
Mm,
Because what business tends to force you to do is that you start to go to the highest paying customer, and then you realize the highest paying customer is not the person that you set out to support. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I mean, the pandemic was a very good indicator to show that the agency model is dying. All agencies around the world. I have had meetings with multi-million-dollar agencies who have actually come to me and said, "Hey, we think you're interesting. We're a little scared of you. We want to understand what you're doing." So that
mm,
lets me know that you can
mm.
see that they're under pressure
Yeah,
because it's based on relationships and how people feel, right?
yeah,
Whereas you need to move into a space of just being in the flow of what people already want, right? So that's generally what led to that pivot. And I think I've been a bit of a visionary. So like I saw where the world was going to go in 10 years and 15 years. I saw what ChatGPT was going to do to the world much, much, much earlier than it did, right? And you can imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years as well. And therefore I knew that I need to start on that pivot, even though it doesn't make sense, start on that now. And that's what really led me to do it. And I feel so good about the impact that we're making. We're truly global now. We are on track to supporting a lot of people, and then also this legacy goes far beyond my own efforts, because with an agency a lot of it was based on my relationships and who I knew, but as a tool, as a software company, the infrastructure stands on its own, whether I'm the one driving it or not.
yeah.
It outlives me, and I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Wow, it's quite mind blowing,
Mm.
and mind blowing how you decided to make that decision because
Yeah.
some people some people are so focused on trying to get that, 7 figure, eight
Yeah.
figure mark that
Yeah.
they lose themselves.
Yeah.
And I think with you, like you realize that, nah, I'm here for more. Like I want to make an impact.
Yeah.
Like you had Veronica, I think here,
Mm.
maybe last week or so,
Mm.
and she's talking about how, her goal is to serve humanity
Yes.
through helping people to start purpose-driven content
Yes.
businesses. And I think this is a similar theme here. I can
Yes.
see a similar theme here
Yeah.
that you're,
Yeah.
you've gone down that route as well.
Mm.
And yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Do you think there's like a toxicity in terms of agencies? Like you get to a certain point where you bottleneck and you lose your soul, and it's more about hitting certain numbers, hitting
Mhm.
certain targets, and less about serving the customer or the client.
That's a touchy one, bro. Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, I mean, agencies are doing their best. I would say if all you've known in your life and in your career is one way of doing things,
Yeah,
it's not unnatural that that is the path that you follow, right?
yeah,
So a lot of people who own agencies used to work in agency,
yeah,
and so they're not technology people, or they're not, and so I don't blame them for wanting to continue and try things and multiple in that very specific lane. And also the agency model traditionally is not necessarily to support. It's not built to support the small,
yeah,
if you get what I mean. It's primarily built to, everyone wants to tie themselves to a very large campaign that they did, or a very large brand. That's usually what gets you other business. So it's structured in a way away from impact in some way, even though now agencies do care a lot about impact, sustainability, and things that they're doing with their campaigns. They still require a couple hundreds or a couple $1 million to be able to deliver that kind of thing, right?
true,
And when you
true.
think about the fact that, well, there's if you look at what small business, how many startups there are in the world and small businesses are in the world, like that is a huge market that has been completely alienated from the agency space. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna shade agencies too much, but
Yeah.
I would just say it's quite natural to see that they're gonna do what they know how to do, if you get what I mean. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And what would you, I mean, I think when it comes to agencies, businesses like yourselves, I
Yes.
mean, the common thing here is that you all want to scale and grow. What would you say is the what would you say is needed in terms of scaling maybe a brand
Mm,
or a business like yours
right.
or like an agency? Like what key things are important in terms of needing to scale? Because as you mentioned, you've got 7 people in your team and then you're working with AI and some other
Yeah.
external
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
so you're gonna need systems and workflows and frameworks and
Exactly.
people to
Yeah.
help you to scale. Like
Yeah.
what would you say is key here?
So, I mean, I started my this entire business based on an equation, and
Yeah.
I think so.
Mm.
That's yeah. So it's very much so. I have the artistic side of my brain, and then the very logical side of my brain that likes to work with mathematical equations and just the logic of certain things, right?
Yeah.
So my question was, how would an ambiguous creative output or ambiguous creative industry be able to work in a way where you can predictably ask somebody for whatever they want, and somebody can deliver that predictably within 24 hours, right? That was the equation. Like, so it was just like,
Mm.
I remember I wrote that on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
What are the things? So I started with that equation. So creative input to creative output, 24 hours, right? Then I
Yeah.
broke it down. What goes into creative input? Briefing, this, that.
Yeah.
What goes into creative output? That. What goes
Yeah.
into 24 hours? So you start breaking that down. Then what? So then you kind of figure out like a simple fulfillment model, right? And in terms of, so this needs to happen, that needs to happen in this particular way. So when you realize, so for example, briefing for me, if something needs to be delivered in 24 hours, means briefing has to happen in 7 minutes, and that's currently our timeline.
Yeah.
It means
Mm.
finding the talent to
Yeah.
do the work needs to happen within less than 30 minutes. To be able, the talent needs to be able to get the work done within 2 hours. Quality control needs to happen within 30 minutes. Do you
I
get
get
it?
that.
So
I get
like
that.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then, but it's all crazy things. Like when you look at it, it's like, this is just insane. Like how the hell are you supposed to do this? Because I'll give you a very simple idea is that matching a talent to a project, right, in 30 minutes. If you think about the infrastructure you need to be able to ensure that if 1,000 people ask for something today, you have 1,000 people ready, not that you're now going to find them. They're ready, their time is already allocated, they've already been vetted, all of that stuff to be able to deliver that within 24 hours is insane. You get what I mean? So that's kind of how, but when you start to think about it in such a granular way, it's very easy to scale once you figure it out, because all you need to do is to pump up one side. But for my end, you have to pump up one side and the other side so that they
Yeah.
meet in the middle. But from other businesses, if you figure that out, if you pump up one side, it just scales dramatically, right?
Yeah.
And then the question is, in pumping up one side, how can I ensure that I can pump up my customers? For we have a hypothesis. We're trying to deliver customers within, I think, $10 to $15.
Mhm.
Another man. So how am I supposed to deliver 100,000 customers within 8 years for $10 to $15? That's the next equation.
Oof.
So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we've launched the model of our free trials, our partnerships. Like there's a lot that we're doing. And I know my business is not even yet ready. We will
Yeah.
probably be ready in about a year or two, because currently everything we're doing is a bloody experiment.
Yeah.
Like just to see what will break, who cares, what
Yeah.
works, and so we're really seeing that, okay, now there's an interesting, I'm not going to share all our trade secrets, but we figured out like a very unique referral model that is able to get leads who are not interested in our business right now to get us 10 more leads, and get cool points in addition to that, because we're
Mm.
looking at people's psychology and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So these are just ways that we're looking at it, right? And we break these things down into equations. Once we're able to do that, build the systems around it, and then find the money or the resources or the partners that we need to be able to pump that up. So
Wow.
that's what I would say. And people don't do enough work. People just focus on, I'm going to put all my attention to attending this wedding or this networking event to get one customer that's going to pay me $100,000. And that, you don't do the equation when you're doing that kind of stuff. You're just kind of relying on your own self and your ego, and you miss the joy of the whole process. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. Wow. So, as much as you want to kind of like hit these targets, as much as you feel like there's a specific goal that you want to
Yeah.
reach, you also really need to take time to reverse engineer and understand, the equation of what it takes to get to where you want to get to,
Exactly. Yeah.
and to really like, I can tell you've deeply considered it. I can see why you said it's the art and the science.
Yeah.
You've deeply broken it down. Like, okay,
Yeah.
because if this, if that, it's like a literal, it's like a little, like a flow chart
Yeah. It's
going through
yeah.
your head.
It
I can,
is.
I can
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. And I know, okay, let's talk a little bit about you, because I know
Okay.
we were talking about Workspace Global
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
scaling brands, etc.
Yeah.
So, what does it take for someone like you, who's on this mission,
Yeah.
to really bridge the gap in the African creative economy, and then also to, to hit 100,000 plus
Mhm.
clients, and and then you've also got your personal life. What does that look like, managing your personal life with all of
It's not
this?
easy, man. It's not easy. And I've come to accept in my adult life that you don't actually ever fully figure it out. You just keep trying, right? That's one thing I recognize, because I do believe I am a committed husband and a committed father and a committed friend. So I remember recently when I was going to Ghana, I sent all my friends a calendar link. And I got so many insults like, who the hell do you think you are? Like sending us, but like, yeah, because I had to meet 20 to 25 people. And, that's the intentionality. I was like, listen, you have an hour in my time. I'm sending you a link so we don't have to go back and forth, because I'm serious about spending time with you. And so I really bring a lot of that, my work ethic, into my personal relationships as well. And it seems annoying, it seems weird, but I schedule time to spend with my son. I schedule time that I schedule date night with my wife. Like, all these things are in the calendar, in my work calendar, to be able to do that, because that's the only way that it doesn't break down. But again, the balance is never perfect either way, and I think nobody's ever really going to. That's the point of balance. It's about the pursuit of balance and not achieving balance itself, if you get what I mean. Because if you have the perfect balance, I feel like life is not as exciting. But it's in the pursuit of being able to do that I do that. So I put the same level of intentionality on the personal and on the work front, just as equally, actually more on the personal side, I would say.
Mm.
And that's what's really helping me, to have those systems. My wife and I have a spreadsheet for our finances, and it's not a spreadsheet about the finances, but more about where money goes when it comes in. So whether, even if we don't have a conversation, we know that, okay, 20% of our income goes straight here. Like, it's very, those systems just really
Yeah,
help,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
so yeah.
Okay, so would you say that's one of the key things to being an entrepreneur who's trying to build a brand that's scaling,
Yeah.
in terms of managing your own personal life? So having systems
Yeah.
for your life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure on top of that, managing your health,
Yeah.
managing your wealth, managing your
Yeah.
finances and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. Those are also key as well, and your relationships.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose it all,
Mm.
because unfortunately, specifically with entrepreneurship, career people, business people who have a 9 to 5, don't suffer
Mm.
the same problems that entrepreneurs do.
Mm.
The reason I say that is everyone can reconcile that you are at work from 9 to 5. If you have a work trip, you don't have a choice. It's not like you're choosing to go on the work trip. So for some reason, you don't get as much pushback. But as an entrepreneur, everything you do for work is a choice. And every choice you make is a choice away from your personal life, if you get what I mean. Because and think about it this way: in raising a child, you have to be creative. You have to come up with things that you want to do to teach your child every day, right?
Mm.
It's the same parts of your brain that you use to apply to your business, because your business is your baby. So
Yeah.
if you think about it, with entrepreneurs specifically,
Yeah.
our personal lives and our professional lives are actually always in competition. Even if, yeah, much different from a banker, much different from a lawyer, much different from a doctor, because everybody gets it and everybody knows what they're gonna get. But with
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, when I choose to travel to Web Summit, that is 4 days I'm choosing to be away from my family. And that sits in the mind a little differently from my boss asked me to go on a trip for 4 days, if you get what I mean. So that's an interesting thing. But I'm just gonna say that, it's all worth it. You need the personal more than the business, because I feel like the best cars have the best cars, the fastest cars have the best brakes, right? And your personal life is kind of the brakes and the resting point that you need to be able to thrive. It will take you longer than you think it would, unfortunately, because you are not trying to live a toxic life and just achieve everything in a year, but it's worth it, because you get to celebrate whatever wins you have with the people that you love. So that's my perspective on that.
That's so powerful. I can't wait
Yeah.
to rewatch this. For all the listeners watching, I think this is such a powerful wow. This is just so powerful. Yeah, I can definitely feel that your 13 years of entrepreneurship coming out through that one
Yeah,
statement that you made. It's
yeah.
certainly powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to Workspace
Talk to
Global.
me.
I know we're coming up on time.
Yeah.
Could you talk me through in terms of like how can small African businesses leverage,
Mm,
Workspace Global, for their branding, for their marketing, and
right.
for design and digital work?
Okay. So currently, the workspace model, even though we have Africa at our core, right? But the software model is a little more tailored towards the markets outside Africa and senior African brands a little bit,
Yeah,
right? So you should be making probably about $2,000 to $3,000 a month in revenue for Workspace to be a comfortable spend for you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I don't want anyone to go to the website and be surprised, right?
Hmm.
Currently, we're working on reverse engineering the sustainability for the African business,
Hmm.
so that because we realize the African business price point, like not every African business is making $2,000 in revenue, in relation to that. So what we're doing, number one, is as long as you can prove that you're an African business, we will give you $100 discount on your subscription immediately, just by the fact that you're an African business.
Hmm.
So that's one way by which we are contributing. So basically, we don't make any money, but that's like our idea of like creating impact
African business on the continent, yeah,
on the
not
continent
like a
itself.
diaspora somewhere.
No, if you're a diaspora, you're fine. If you're an African business, you can prove that you're a registered business in Africa. We will give you that discount immediately,
Fantastic.
so that it's more accessible for you.
Yeah,
We're speaking to partners so that other people can pay for African businesses to come on. So that's a major thing. We're looking
clever.
at
I
speaking to
like that.
MasterCard and a few other places. So, and even accelerators and incubators. So the idea is that they will be the client,
Yeah,
and then we open 20 slots or 50 slots or 100 slots
yeah,
for any African businesses in specific industries, so that they can access that. We're looking at people who are investing in women-led businesses. So that's our way of doing that, so that the businesses themselves don't have to worry about paying for it,
mm,
regarding that. We're also launching a product next year called the Africa Brand Accelerator, and that would be a blend of workshops and services, that we're applying to a few international organizations for, so that it can be completely free for African startups and founders to come on. So you get both education, and we will build your logo, website, blah blah blah, everything you need to become an excellent brand within 3 months. So that,
wow.
that that these are things that we're doing because I'm very passionate about Africa, as you can see. Like I'm really
I can
trying to
absolutely
push that.
see.
So
Yeah,
I'm really reducing that barrier. And to be honest, I always just say talk to us. Like, because even if the price point is a little too high for you, talk to us and say, hey, I would really like to work with you. What can I do? The other thing I would say is that anybody as well can go and try the platform for free. And this is our investment in you, knowing that with whatever we primarily invest in pitch decks or company brochures, things you can use to sell,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because we're saying that if we can help you position yourself well, it's likely you will make some money and come back to us, right?
Hmm.
So everyone who's listening to this video right now, you can go to our website today and try it out for free,
Hmm.
so that at least we can give you that first little bit of Workspace Gold,
Yeah.
so that you can sell and get some business. So that one is also really available for all African businesses as well as of today. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I will make sure that's in the show notes,
Yeah.
in the description below, whether you're watching on YouTube or
Yeah.
listening to podcast players. Of course, they sponsored us last season, so we're gonna keep that going. We're gonna keep sharing that link so you guys can continue to try Workspace Global, so we can help them, reach the 100,000 mark and
Yeah.
support, all these businesses. Sydney, this has been a great conversation as
Honestly.
well. Just as we close up, just can you share a bit of light in terms of the African creative economy?
Mm.
You're really flying the flag for Africa, Workspace
Yes.
Global, doing a fantastic job. We're
Yes.
all proud of you. Um, I know there's probably other businesses that's trying to do something similar. We
Yeah.
mentioned remotely,
Yeah.
that's really trying to close the gap.
Yeah.
What would you say is the state of the African creative economy right now in terms of like branding, design, and what do you think it needs to get to the point that it needs to be?
I think the African creative economy is growing. So I am
Yeah.
proud of where it's gotten to, even though we still have a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
But the raw talent is there.
Okay.
Now, the commerciability of that talent is a little bit in question.
Mm.
And that's a part of what we actually are launching a project called also the Talent Accelerator next year,
Mm.
where we realize that talent focuses only on the skills, the hard skills, the design, web development skills. But then the part that is missing, which makes them commercially viable, is the customer service, the emotional intelligence, the project management. And nobody's teaching them that. Like, nobody tells you that's important when you come out of university. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you sit in the African creative economy, please try to invest your time in those additional soft skills as well, because that is what actually the world is looking for. A doctor is only good if they're able to interact with patients, if you get what I mean. Even though they might be the best doctors in the world, if people don't like them, if people don't trust them, they're not going to be able to get work done. So that's what I feel is missing. That additional soft skills element, which I think it's very easy for people to invest in that. There are brands that are working on that, but not at the scale that, there are so many amazing creators in Africa. And I think you guys just need to take that charge yourself and be able to, just make sure that it's easier for us to sell you globally, regarding that. So
yeah, I could see your passion through that.
Sorry,
almost knocked the mic off.
I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Wow, I couldn't have said it any better, Sydney.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
This has been awesome.
Just leave the audience with any final tips, maybe entrepreneurs, startups, or maybe companies who are scaling at the moment. Just leave them some final tips in terms of what they can do to scale a global brand that they're building.
Right.
And then let's just close out with where people can connect with you, Workspace Global, and any announcements you want to make.
Awesome. I just want to encourage people, to focus on the facts. That's something that I wish someone told me earlier, because we encourage you to be visionary, but then you can sometimes distract yourself with, your ego, your idea of what should be instead of what is. And sometimes you really need to just look at the facts. So, for example, to build a global business, one thing I stopped being deluded about is you still have to build every individual market. It's not just that, you post on TikTok or you post on LinkedIn and you're a global business immediately. Like, you have to put in the work in one market and it might be different in the other. So I really encourage everyone to just focus on the facts, focus on the data, ask questions of what's really going on and not what you think should be happening. I think that would be really, really important. I do encourage everyone who listens to my content that you are entitled to 15 minutes of my time. I will give everyone 15 minutes of my time. So if you can go to my LinkedIn at Sydney Scott Sam, that's with a Y, Sydney Scott Sam. You can book an appointment with me to at least start a coaching relationship, and I can support you on that. You can also go check out workspaceglobal.com, and that's where you can just start your journey with everything Workspace, and we're really happy to support your journey. We genuinely are rooting for every single founder out there, to be able to create change in the world. I feel like we're doing what governments and international organizations will not be able to do because they are not at that grassroots level, and they don't care enough about the granular level of the problem. And that's why I believe in entrepreneurs, because we are the catalyst that the world really needs for change. So,
Absolutely. And we're seeing this around the world. It certainly is clear. Wow. You better get ready for all of these calendar appointments coming in, Sydney. You just unleashed the whole world to yourself, to your diary. So, so there you have it, guys. Sydney Sam, founder, CEO, Workspace Global, entrepreneur, also a coach as well. I think Ideas to Revenue Zero. You also got like a coaching program. So we'll make sure we have links and more information about that all in the show notes. You guys can head over to thesoundofacrowd.com/Sydney. That's SYDNEY. And then, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Take care. Don't forget to try out Workspace Global for free.